PXG has done it again with the launch of a new lineup of drivers, fairways, hybrids, and irons. The new Gen 5 golf clubs deliver significantly increased MOI, faster ball speeds, longer distances, and tighter dispersions, all coupled with the exceptional feel and sound golfers have come to expect from PXG. Schedule your custom fitting or buy online at pxg.com.
And we're back, Stripe Show podcast on a Tuesday. I'm your host, Travis Fulton. Thank you for making us part of your day as we look ahead to the Arnold Palmer Invitational, the next elevated event on the PGA Tour. Hope you cashed your Chris Kirk tickets last week. I didn't have it. I was on Eric Cole, Ben Coley, the guest last week. We threw out Eric Cole. We threw out Eric Barnes. Those were a couple of the guys in the long shot category that we were looking at. And I did sprinkle a little bit on Eric Cole, and he just couldn't quite get there. The 34-year-old. It was just me, or did it feel like Eric Cole was like 24? Like in my mind, I was like, he's 24. He's a rookie, but yet he's 34. And he actually was a former teacher too. He was teaching down in Southern Florida, trying to make ends meet as he was winning on the mini tours. Just an incredible story. But a guy that did have Chris Kirk joins me today, as he usually has just about every winner every week. There he is, Brandon Gup, till he's back. The Gup, how you doing, bud?
Doing well. It's been a crazy few days. We dodged tornadoes Sunday night after the golf, and it was close. We had one about 2 miles south of us that destroyed a whole bunch of neighbors and neighborhoods, but got through it. That's Oklahoma. I know that when I live here, it's gonna be like that. Record-breaking February for tornadoes. We don't get them this early, so I hope that's on a sign of things to come in the spring. But excited for this week. It was a fun week last week. The Kirk Sweat was fun. It was a great tournament. I love the Honda in general. I normally go every single year. Can't wait to get back next year, but and kind of see what happens with it. Are we going to get rotation? Are we going to things like that? I think are going to be interesting. But I like this tournament too this week. It's a very tough challenge as well. So looking forward to it.
It is interesting, like PGA National, Bay Hill. These are two courses in Florida that when you look at it, and we'll get into Bay Hill here in a second, that a lot of these big name players will avoid, right, as of late, because they are challenging golf courses. As I said last week, when you get over here to Florida, you've got some tough tests coming. Now, the wind didn't blow at PGA National. That's as easy as you'll see that place play. But they do kind of dodge, these two, right? Because you do put some wind on it, and we're going to get some wind at Bay Hill on Friday, and it's going to be carnage, and it's going to be fun to watch. But the field, of course, last week sandwiched in between these elevated events wasn't a great field. I hope next year, it sounds like there's going to be 4 or 5 of these elevated events that they are going to move around. I hope that they can keep it at PGA National. I think they will get a new sponsor because that area down there deserves it. And I would love, Gup, to see the field that we have this week play PGA National with the wind.
Yeah, I mean it's a great time down there, and I mean, look how many pros live in Jupiter and
right.
and that area. So there's a reason that they're all there. But to your point, the way the scheduling's been, the biggest money pots normally before this year was the players and then the match play before you get to the Masters, and so they would change obviously they want to play for the most money. This puts a little wrinkle into it, which you're seeing a ton of guys here who have either never played it or once here, twice here. In the last 10 years, big names, JT, Cantley, Rahm's only played once. So it would make it, I would assume, just, plus the rules that they have in effect, that if it went to the Honda, became one of the rotations for 1 year, that these guys would show up there, right? And it would be a blast. I mean, it would be awesome for them to, and it's kind of got a low-key waste management vibe, but it's just not as insane crazy. But it's a great time in general, and you get one of the best finishes on tour period with the way that thing finishes on the bear trap and 18s. We saw it with Kirk. He almost blew it. No gimme either, that no lead safe. And I like that when you have a tight leaderboard and someone can make a run, a Vegas type run on Sunday morning and almost win it. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, Palmer went out early on Sunday and we saw the winds were going to be brutal afternoon. We bet him live at 300-1, and he shoots like 7 under, and at the time had the lead and wound up losing by 1 shot. So that's fun when you can see that kind of stuff. And I think we'll get some of that this week with a much better field, of course.
Yeah. You look at this week, Justin Thomas, he's avoided this place at all cost at Arnie's tournament. Spieth hasn't played here much. Patrick Cantlay has avoided this place at all costs. As you mentioned, John Rahm has played it once. So, you got a lot of big name guys coming in here, and they don't have a whole lot of experience at Bay Hill. Now, one guy that does is Rory McIlroy, who has played this place as well as anybody. But if John Rahm wins this tournament, I think I'm going to just go ahead and shut everything down, because it's getting a little old, right, with John Rahm. Now, it's getting perhaps to sound a little old for Rory McIlroy, because he's been, winning some tournaments as late. But his putter has been a little chilly the last couple of times that we saw him. So it's going to be interesting. The boys are now in Florida, and we're ready for another elevated event back-to-back. Arnold Palmer Invitational this week at Bay Hill, par 72. And then next week, they're here in my backyard at TPC Sawgrass. All right, you look at Bay Hill historically, Gup. Give the audience 2 or 3 things, handful of things that you've researched. I know you put a lot of time into this. And when you look at Bay Hill, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, especially when we were going to project a tough either day or days, so you're not, I don't think you're going to see a Rory 18 under type win. I think it's going to be closer to our 7, 8, 9. You may see a 10 under type, depending on how the weekend plays. Sunday looks like maybe the best conditions, but how beat up are they going to be by then? I mean, I just think it's a ball striker's paradise. You have to be able to drive the ball, some kind of combination of driving the ball and great irons. You can be not as long off the tee if you have great irons. Your Colin Morikawa types, probably your Tom Kim. He's not played here yet, but and then being able to get up and down around the greens and stuff, and even more so since what has it been 3 or 4 years now, they really shaved down those spots that have led to a lot tougher around the green type stuff, and frankly higher scores. That I want good guys off the tee that are long and accurate, a little bit of a good balance there. And strong irons, and then really looking at around the green a lot, because a lot of these guys are just going to miss greens. Putting does matter to an extent, but compared to some weeks, I think it's more about just getting up there. And like, again, when you're only needing 2 under a day, it's probably going to have you in the lead going into Sunday type deal. It also helps those guys like a Matsu, those guys that are always putting for birdie, they just never hardly make it. So those guys this week, a par is a great score, and so you're like, yep, it changes the dynamic, who can be there come Sunday, because they're great ball strikers versus elite putters, in my opinion.
Yeah, it feels like you need a little grind, right, this week too. There's a little grind in this. Defending champ Scotty Scheffler, of course, was winning everything at this time last year. One waste management, then comes rolling in here and wins. Oh, Scotty Scheffler, one waste management. Now he comes rolling in here again. Bryson won here in 2021. Tyrrell Hatton won in 2020. I think will be popular this week. Has been showing some good form. Francisco Molinari, when he was playing professional golf back in 2019, and then Rory in 18. Of course, Tiger, you have to mention, has won this tournament 8 times. And my friend Matt Every won it back-to-back as well, 2 times. So, it's a course. I've played it probably half dozen times. I've played in the Pro-Am in this a couple times. I actually played with Victor Hovland right after he was turning professional. He hadn't turned pro quite yet. He was still an amateur carrying the Oklahoma State bag. And I played the Pro-Am with him, had a great day. Just a class dude. Love Victor Hovland, although I don't particularly love where he's going with his game right now. And I've been talking about it on the pod, my concern with Vic over the last month. We'll get to that later. But it is a course, as you mentioned, like keeping it in the fairway. What stands out to me is the difficulty around the green. There are some gnarly spots. And it feels like the rough has gotten a little bit gnarlier since Arnie died. Like they're letting it go a little bit more. So the rough will be a factor. I've got some feelers out there right now, just how difficult it is with some guys on the ground. But yeah, it's a ball striker's paradise. but you can't fake it around the greens. You're going to have to prove it with some short game as well. All right, let's get into it. Got the board here. And, let's just go ahead and start here with the top four guys. Rahm, Scheffler, McIlroy, Morikawa. Rahm, of course, 6.5 right now to 1. Scheffler's at 9, defending champ. McIlroy's at 9. And then it jumps to 18. Morikawa. So I guess if you had to go with those four, are you going to go with Rory like everybody else, I'm hearing?
It's hard not to. My take's always been, if one of these guys is a guy I really like, I'll tend to flip to the first round leader and see, maybe that same guy's going out early. I can get a Rahm 18, a Rory 22, and it's not, it's only one round, so a lot could happen on it, but I just can't. So far, we may all have to change our opinions on the betting world. It's hard to get down into anything under 15 to feel good about. It really shrinks up your card. But if I had to, yeah, I would actually rank it Rory, Scheffler, then Rahm. I know Rahm's been playing well. There's things I've seen about Rahm that if it happened here, I think it would hurt him even more. And he's gotten a lot cooler headed, but he can get still a little hot. Not that that's a huge deal. I mean, he's still one of the top 3 players in the world. I think he's technically number 1 right now, but I like Scheffler just in general. And he, this first time he ever seen this course, he was 15th, and so then he comes back and wins it. So I'm not counting him out at all. I think he'll be squeezed in your DraftKings type worlds where he may be a little lower owned, but man, it's hard to ignore Rory's, 6 straight years, his worst finish is a 13th with 4 top 6s. I mean, you had to think I know he's not coming in like on fire or anything, but I remember a few years ago when his game was lost. I think it was 2018 or something. He came here and just won. So I can't count him out. He'd probably be my favorite up top for sure.
Well, I think Rory's hoping that his putter wakes up this week, like Scheffler's woke up at Waste Management, right? And that was the discussion we were having with Scott. He's like, can this happen again? He comes in, the putter's been chilly, and does he get back on the grounds that he's putted well on? And it did. Boom, just like that. He starts putting well and he wins again. And Rory is hitting the ball tee to green well enough right now to win everything.
Right.
But the putter has been pretty bad the last 2 times out. He was -4.5 at Genesis, -3.5 at Waste Management. So is he primed and peaked and ready to go? I think he will be. Rahm has been dominating, the new number 1. Scheffler wins. All right, now it's Rory's time, right? Now it's okay. Let's get back in the winner circles and go. Now, as I come down to Morikawa, I will say, and Morikawa has, I just looked at it, I think a 7th here. I think it was a ninth. Excuse me.
Yep.
Yeah, T9 back in 2020. And I will say, my goodness, I love what I'm seeing with Morikawa's putter, the changes that he's made with Stephen Sweeney. I was talking to Stephen about it, and Morikawa has taken to it. I mean, it just has fit, and he has been putting fantastic since January. Had a little blunder there at Waste Management when I was on him. But I tell you, I think his short game's coming. I think his putter is really looking good. Positive 4.5 at Genesis with his short game. He had to feel good about that. He's putting a lot of time in with Parker McLaughlin, who's the short game chef. I tell you, I said beginning of the year, I think Morikawa's going to have a huge year. And when I look into the 2s now, Morikawa's 18, Holmes 20, Cantlay's 20, Zalatoris is 20. I'm with you. I'll take McIlroy at the short, but now we get into the 20s, and I'll take Morikawa, who's at 18. He just dropped.
Yeah, there's certain places still got him 20, so he's still alive there for sure.
Yeah. So I'll lean into Morikawa there. Who else do you like? Cantlay, I don't know if he's ever played here. Has he? I don't. This might be the first time he's played here.
He hadn't played since 2016 for sure. Yeah. So it's been a long time. I mean, Willie Z's my guy. You know that.
Yeah,
I back him most any times. He did very well for me at the Genesis when no one wanted to play him with the potential. Hey, your pod was one of them that got people worried. And what was actually crazy is when I listened to your pod, I actually felt better about, like, I get it. He may not win this week, but I don't think he's here to just go through the exercises. He was just ahead of schedule. I think everybody kind of got off of him and was like, he's not gonna do well till the Masters. And he got fourth, right? And so
that's fair.
T to Green is T to Green, he's right up there with most anybody. And he's done okay here, a 10th and a 38th. So, 2 made cuts, which made cuts here are good. But when you're good down 20, you definitely want a winner. But I can see him winning. And he's the same way, putter. I mean, if he's neutral on the putter, he's going to be in any tournament come Sunday. And more about the technical side. I just thought he looked good at Genesis.
Oh, they look great.
What I don't know is, is there something they could tweak? And he's hurt for the week, probably. But we could probably say that about Xander. We could probably say that about Fitzpatrick. They're all kind of throwing some things up injury wise here in the last month. He's the guy I would be on out of those for sure.
Yeah, he hasn't putted great here on these surfaces here at Bay Hill, as you mentioned. A couple of the finishes, but he exceeded my expectation at Genesis for sure. I know his coach Josh Gregory pretty well, and they're optimistic, and he's ahead of schedule. There's no question about it. In the build up to the Masters, no one's going to be surprised if Will Z tees it up anywhere and wins. I mean, he's just that exceptional, and so he comes in with momentum. I've been saying it for a year. I've been saying it for a long time. Feel great about his putter. Just feel great about it. He is an improving and better than average putter, I think, now on the PGA Tour. Is he going to have a few weird moments where the putter does that little gyration from time to time? Yeah, I think that's still in the cards. But technically, and where he's trending over the last, better part of half to 3/4 of a year, I think he's in a good a spot as he's maybe ever been, honestly, with the putter. So are we jumping the gun maybe a little bit on a win here? Perhaps, but Will Zalatoris is coming, folks. He's healthy and he is on his way back. Yeah, I'm gonna Schauffele would probably be my second in this range. Finau has avoided this place in the past. I don't think this is his favorite venue. Jason Day now has jumped up to 25.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a former champion we know is playing great golf. He has to feel really good about his chances here this week. JT put it together at the member guest at Seminole. They won. Had a nice final round there on Sunday. JT is certainly warming up the engines here. Hovland's at 28. And then Sungjae at 30. My concern with Hovland, not to beat a dead horse, but and I've gotten some pushback on this, is he's kind of jumping around a little bit right now, and he left Jeff Smith, guy that really helped him, I think, over the last 3 years. Went to Joseph Mayo, who's a brilliant mind, and there's no question about that. But this is like his 6th coach, Gup, since his college days, and so like. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing, what he's searching for in the need to be kind of jumping around. And I just don't like the way he's trending right now. Hovland's a great player. We know that. He can show up with his B game and finish in the top 20. I mean, he's just that gifted. But winning right now against this field and what I'm seeing, I think I'm out on Hovland, which might surprise some people considering he finished second here last year.
Second. Yep. Yeah, I have I'm out on him as well this week. He's actually my lowest graded person that's this high up on the board, or 9,000 above DraftKings, however you want to look at it. I'll pass on that. I get the second. It is what it is. What I'll be interested in, I always like trying to listen to many pressers as we can, and we get a lot more on a week like this. I'm interested to hear some of these guys. I'm sure someone's general question is always going to be, hey, you hadn't played here much, or you hadn't played here, Schauffele, right. He's another one. He's only played once in the last 7 years. So why is that? Or, are you just here because of the elevated events? And which is yes and no to their extent, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I get it, right? Yeah. You want to go, and they have to, right? They can only miss one, which I was talking with someone last night. He was talking about Cantley. He knows I'm a big Cantley guy, and Cantley's done me well. But I said Cantley's extremely methodical about everything he does, which is probably why he hadn't played here. If he doesn't feel it's one of his best ones, he's not going to play there. And they're allowed to miss one. So what makes me think is, why would, if he was going to just take one off, why wouldn't it be this one? He just keep rolling like he normally does. He's here for a reason. He's still great, but in this, all these guys are in that same betting price. It does, like, I hope he's one of the guys on the pressers where you get to hear those kind of guys, because that'll answer. And that's one thing. This is a week I don't have a lot of bets in yet. I released my preliminaries last night. Very few, because A, I want to listen to some guys, and B, the weather, right? You know, I don't ever want to, this is a course where weather can change the effects. So I want to wait a little bit, but I'm with you on Hovland. I think I'll take a pass on him as well. And really the rest of this range, because I have two that I really love that is in the next one that I kind of, that's probably all and I like Morikawa too. I never can get on him. And he looks so much better with the putter. I don't know if that's consistent. I know he's made a lot of efforts on it. So I was like, is that consistently? Because if he gets to a neutral putter, he literally can win anywhere. I mean, it's always his putter when, and that's a honest question.
I think he is. I really do. I think it has, I come at it from this, obviously my trade of the education standpoint and instruction. And I've been doing this for a long time, watching these guys when they make a change, the magnitude of the change, who they're working with. And, you get a lot, I've got a lot of them right. You get some of them wrong. But I kind of look at this as when Homa went to Mark Blackburn, like you could just sense like, okay, this is all working. like it looks better. His statistics are immediately getting better. This just feels right, and it feels the same way with Morikawa and what he's doing with his putting in a short game. Like, it just feels right. It looks better. He looks confident immediately. They're ahead of schedule. I'll sign up for that. Now, you can be fooled, right? You can be fooled long-term. Like when Luke List made the changes with his putter, he comes out and blitzes the field and wins. He's like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden Luke List can putt.
Right.
Right. I mean, he just backed up the truck for like the next 6 months again, right, on the putter. So you can get fooled, but I'm in on Morikawa, I think, and I think I haven't bet it, but I think I will probably get back on it. And then, as you scroll down here, I think the next one that is appealing to me, I kind of like Sungjae Im. I could see him hanging around, in this tournament. He's played pretty well here. He played last week in Florida. So I kind of like that. I'm going to pass on Young. I'm going to pass on Fitzpatrick, and you could probably talk me into Hatton. Who are the two names that you're kind of looking as we move down the board?
Young for sure.
Okay.
Just talent wise, he's kind of like a Willie Z to me. I definitely good at Genesis. After a struggling into the waist, came back top 20, played here once, 13th last year. That's shooting 4 over on Sunday. So another guy that, again, when I'm profiling, he profiles well here. The short game is always kind of sometimes he looks great when he's, around the greens and putting. I remember watching the Open very, very closely as I was chasing a couple milli makers that, he was terrific. But some weeks when he doesn't have it around the green or putting, one of the two, man, he can fall off in a hurry. So it's a little more riskier there, but I definitely like him for this. And then the one that I think everybody would be on if we just, other than this neck ill, is Fitzpatrick. I hadn't bet it yet.
Yeah,
I like him. Obviously, he's one of the few that does, like Rory. 5 out of 6 years made the cut here. All 5 years he's been top 13 or better with a second place. I get the next stuff. That's probably the biggest concern is before I put a bet in to say, is there any lingering issues or whatever? He missed the cut of Genesis, but barely 29th at waist. That's the only issue with him is the neck, and maybe I don't bet it and he's going to be a low owned DraftKings type play, but yeah, he's a guy I like. The injury concern there is definitely, is it hurting his iron play or not? That kind of stuff. Cause he's always done well here.
Yeah, I think that's my concern from a win ticket standpoint is where are we at with Fitzpatrick? Man, with this field and the way these guys are playing, you got to be hitting on all cylinders. You don't have, any wiggle room for a Fitzpatrick, when you're going against what you're seeing at the top of the board right now. So
Right.
Something's happened with Cameron Young's short game. I'm looking into it a little bit more, and he's just not quite the same player there. I don't know if he's kind of lost a little bit of confidence or what the deal is, but it's been a little clunky. I think it's led into his putter a little bit too. So, maybe he gets back on the horse here. He was 20th at Genesis, but he hit the ball well enough to be right there in the top 5. And Waste Management, he made the cut, was 64th, American Express 20, so he's looking for some form, right? All right, off the tee, check. Iron's been fine, check. Short game, like what happened? He's losing his mojo there. His bunker play's always been, I think, a bit of a weakness, but seems to be trending into the rest of it. And then there's a lot of pressure, I think, on that putter, and he hasn't been performing. So we'll have to see if he can turn it around. I guess there's Spieth 45. You can flip a coin. What are you going to get with Jordan Spieth? Tom Kim 45. Sam Burns trying to put the pieces together. As we get down into the 50s here, I'm a Burns guy. I've kind of laid off him a little bit. I think he's trying to put the pieces together right now. His iron game has really fallen off. I texted his coach Brad Pullen and just kind of get a sense of where they're at there. But he's got to get that iron game back, because that was his strength. His putter's still fine. He's still an elite putter, but his iron game has really fallen off. Keith Mitchell, though, on the other hand, has put it together.
Yep.
And there's another guy, Gup, that has made some significant short game changes. And my God, it's taken quick. It's really elevated his game. In fact, he talked about it in the interview. So I think in this range, as we start getting down into the 45s, 50, Matsuyama 55, Fowler 65. I'm going to play those two. I'm playing Ricky Fowler. I cannot believe I just said that.
I have Matsu. He's on my card. I like him a lot. And I'm there with you on Mitchell. I think he's had great finishes here, and he's made the cut all 4 years. Last 2 years, not as great. And I would say, other than the year he won the Honda, would be some of his best form he has coming in right now with the two top 5 finishes at Genesis and Pebble. Great price on DraftKings at 8,000, but I definitely, he's right there on the betting card for me as a potential at 50, wherever you can see it at. And then Matsu, he was actually on one of my first releases last night. I got him at 60 and put him on the card officially. That's more just a pure, I think he's pedigree and more talented than a 60 to 1 this field. I get he's probably not coming in like, he's played well here. He's not, but okay, better than average. And again, when I talk about at the beginning, where you talk about tee to green and can he, just survive, this helps him as well. And that's just a good number for a guy that's a major champion winner.
Yeah. And I think he's a guy that dirtied up a little bit, right? You want to grind and play you want to grind a little bit and challenge my short game and see who's got the better short game. Like, that's probably one dude I wouldn't want to do that with, especially with the wind blowing and things like that. That's the one thing also I forgot to mention that I circled with Rory when the wind blows. That's the one factor you got to keep in mind with Rory is he's not a great wind player. And all right, if we get the one heavy day on Friday, everybody's got to deal with it. But if it does pick up and it's like a 4-day affair, I think you got to keep that in consideration because that guy doesn't like it when the fan turns on over, 15 miles an hour. So keep that in mind. Now, Hideki, you want to dirty things up a little bit. There's those football games where, you're probably like a little undermanned and you're like, all right, we got to get something to go a little different. This can't just go like A to B to C to D, right? If it does, and it's the birds are chirping and it's 5 miles an hour and okay, Rory could have his way with it. He's going to have his way with the A game, right? And a lot of these guys are like, well, we don't want his A game. So let's hope that the rough is really long and the wind's going to blow. Maybe it starts raining, get dirtied up a little bit. I think Hideki wants it dirtied up a little bit. And the other guy I think wants it dirtied up a little bit is Thagala because he can get he can get it up and down too. I mean, that dude can get it up and down in some tough situations. I'm not going to play him, but as I look down into the board and you're trying to find an angle, obviously Chris Kirk, he's played well here coming off a win. Are you going to go back to the well with him after what was an emotionally exhausting last week? I mean, just it all comes to fruition and what that guy's been through, and to get back into the winner's circle for the 5th time. I hope that guy, I mean, he's going to play this week, but he deserves to take a week or 2 off and just sit on the beach and relax. I mean, what a great story that was, but he's got to be a little gassed, I would think, coming in. So you look down in here, 70s, 80s, 90s, anybody that maybe you would find an angle on?
Yeah, the Thagala one interests me. I was a little, as I pulled some stuff last night to see it, but it's so limited that I don't want to put too much on it. Is he's so much better on the West Coast short game stuff than he's been on the East Coast so far.
True.
Now, he hasn't played the East Coast as much, so there's a give and take there to go, well, there's only so many rounds because he's fairly new on the tour, and they only go over there so many times. And so he's West Coast guy, born there. And so that was my only concern with the around the green, because he is so good there. And if that's, you take away one of his strengths because maybe Bermuda's not his thing, that had me a little worried. Corey Connors is a guy, you talking about Keith Mitchell, all that kind of stuff. He rates out super high for me. An 11th and a 3rd here the last 2 years after 2 missed cuts. Again, another guy that you talked about, I think he wouldn't mind it dirtied up, windy. I don't think that bothers him, ball striking wise and all that. I think he can grind. And I've seen him as high as 80. That's a pretty good number, for a guy that I don't mind here. And then depending on your book, a guy that's kind of shown some flashes here lately, coming back around, maybe getting fully healthy, is Woodland. I see him 90 or 100. Those were kind of the two that stood out to me.
Yeah, Connors, I had him circled here as well. I don't think I'll play it, but yeah, he definitely wants it to be dirtied up. The one thing I didn't look through that I usually do is, can you win this tournament with a negative strokes gained putting? Has that been done before? I don't know if you know the answer to that, but I would have to think here, no, at this venue. But yeah, Woodland's a good point. He does seem to be getting healthy and finding his way back in. As we work down into the hundreds now, Hoagie, you're going to get the iron play.
Yep.
Aaron Wise, is always going to rate out pretty good with some models, but he's at 100. Taylor Montgomery has been humbled a little bit, I think, with these last 2 elevated events, big field, and we saw him pop in some of the smaller events. You certainly like his driver. You certainly like his putter. His iron game needs some work, and I think the one thing that Montgomery's probably realizing now as he gets onto the PGA Tour and he sees these guys up close, right? And he's in these elevated events, he probably sees the need, like, I've got to get my iron game sharper. And when it does, and if the iron game does get sharper and he starts living with his head above water from a statistics standpoint, the kid's gonna be really good because he's got the bookends of it with the length off the tee and the putter. Siwoo 110, Adam Scott 110, Norwin 110, Horschel continues to fight it at 130, Hadwin 130, Henley 130. Now, so we start getting now into the weeds, which seems unlikely based off of what we've been seeing, obviously, in professional golf, especially these elevated events. It's been so dominated by the better players. So I think as far as I'm going to go down here is Thagala. The one thing I'll say about Sahith, and I'm kind of looking into this as well. Everybody has that, not everybody, but most of them have that one area that just kind of lingers, right? It's their weakness. And of course, for so many of these guys, it's like, man, if the dude could just make a putt, like Corey Connors, if the guy could just simply have a pulse with the putter, like he would win, because his ball striking is so good. So, but with Thagala, it's the driver. That dude can hit some foul balls. And his iron game has been pretty damn good 2 of the last 3 weeks. His short game is just phenomenal. His putter is solid. if he could just figure out how to get the ball in play and eliminate some of those foul balls with the driver, I think Thagala would be. I really think he's already interesting, and he's already a really good player. I get that, but I think he could have the potential to be really special if the driver could just be ironed out a little bit.
No, 100%. That was my worry is, other than the short game stuff is like, man, but he did fine. I mean, that thick rough, you blow it too far left, right in that rough, then you're just battling all day, which he can do, and again, we're thinking it's 7, 8, 9 under type stuff. That's just part of the week. And does he have that mentality? I think he does. That's not where I worry. Yeah. I don't worry about that as much as the potential of if you're always blowing it, it's just a always grind type deal. But short games, he's so good. I don't think many people realize how good he is around, short game wise. And so if the Bermuda, not only if it's not hurting him, but maybe he's getting better on it, right? You see it more times than not. And we're both in the South, so we see a lot of Bermuda, but I don't play on POA much. So I don't know if the first time I go over there how I'd feel either, but I wouldn't discount him. And I definitely, like, when you start talking about, maybe even a top 20 or even some DraftKings type stuff, he's definitely on that list for me. The outright, maybe, that's probably as far, like you said, I'm right there with Woodland, all those guys that as far as I go,
yeah.
There's a couple of long shots that I like that are going to be probably top 20 type plays for me more than anything. But I really see 80, 90 being the highest that a winner comes from this week and what we've seen so far in these big events.
All right, I'll go first on a long shot top 20. I'll go Bezuidenhout. He's 150 to 1 to win. I'll go Bezuidenhout as a long shot for a top 25 or top 20, top 25. And I'm in between on two. Go ahead, give me one of yours.
Right around that same number, 150-ish, depending on where you're looking. Pendrith is a guy that I have marked. Man, hey, I play him so much every week that I follow a lot of his stuff, and if he can eliminate he'll have a double or a triple out of nowhere. Surrounded by, kind of reminds like how Cam Davis was. Now Cam Davis is a whole different story on broke. I don't know what's going on with him, but he'll be playing really well, and then it's just one hole and it disappears if he eliminates that. But on a week like this, I said it last week, but I'll say it again this week on all the stuff I'm doing is, and maybe you can say if I'm wrong, I think mentality changes when you go, I don't have to shoot 3, 4, 5 under every day to be in this. And so if you're in the right mentality to go, all right, this double, whatever, or a big bogey putt to save it, normally when you're like, I got to make birdie every other hole, I'm out of this thing, those kind of things on this type of week really means a lot when you're going to have a +3 type cut number, and maybe he can hang on. Again, you're talking about the long shot there, 150, but he's one that I kind of earmarked as a potential top 20 bet or, something like that I liked.
Yeah, I think you make some valid points with that. It's a different mindset. There's no question. And there are guys that are wired that way. Like they want to just get in there and wrestle for 4 days, and grind. And you know what? I really played well today and shot 2 under. Yep. They don't feel like on the first tee that they have to shoot 6 or 7 under par, right? They feel like they can go out and just get in a dogfight and get out of there 2 under, and then make a bomb on one of the last 2 holes and make it 3 under, that kind of thing. So it is a different mindset. I totally agree with that.
Zalatoris that's who he is. That's another reason why I bump him this week. And him and Scheffler, I give Scheffler the nod over Rory in that sense because they play down here in Texas all the time. I mean, the wind is not an issue for those boys. They are around it all the time, and they'll grind. I like both those guys in a tougher type deal. But Rory's track record here, he's played well even when it's blown a little bit. But when you're fine cutting there, it definitely can matter. Make a difference on where you want to go up top.
Connors to me is a top 20 pick for sure. Cam Davis, you mentioned earlier, man, he's really struggling. He has lost it. Not sure what's going on there. I met his coach in Palm Springs, ever since I talked to his coach, we sat there and watched Cam hit balls, that the dude hasn't broken 75. I mean, Garrett Cankle's playing some good golf. You know, that's a guy that you start getting way down here in the weeds that could be someone to look at. Obviously, Ben Griffin's playing good golf. These are guys that are going to give you some really good odds when you're looking at a long shot top 20. I can be a bit of a Smalley homer, but I think he could be someone to look at here from the newbie standpoint. I think he's a guy that, I don't know, feels like right kind of place, right? Yeah, grinder. Yeah, right kind of place for an Alex Smalley to make the cut, grind, and get a top 20 for some decent odds.
What about a guy that was kind of broke a little bit, but showed a lot last week? We talked about him a lot last year. I still hadn't left him, and I'll be right back on him this week. Davis Riley. He's 250 to 1. He's not nothing I'm going to buy, you know, but top 20, top 40. Another thing, it's a smaller field. So you're not, you know, it's not much, but only 120 guys versus 144 type deal, making the cut, grind through. These top 40s and top 20s are, I don't want to say they're easier to get to, but when you're 250 to 1, 300 to 1, those can give you some good numbers. I just still think that kid has it. I mean, I saw it so much last year. He just couldn't close and showed enough last week. Again, Honda, that kind of grind mentality, finished 29th. I liked what I saw.
Yep. I think his best ball striking week in a long time.
Yeah.
Driver and irons was Davis Riley last week, 29th at the Honda. His putter has been a little chilly, but yeah, I agree. I think he has to feel like, okay, I can build on that, right? I can, because he's really struggled. There's no question about it. He had 3 missed cuts coming into that. But you think about Davis Riley in the first part of late spring, first part of the summer. I mean, and the guy was just living in top 20s. I mean, every time he teed it up, it was a top 20. If it wasn't a top 20, it was a top 10. Right. And he also had some top 5s. I think second at Valspar. I mean, he was playing some really quality golf. To your point, he just wasn't closing and winning. So, I think it's an interesting angle for Davis. Missed the cut last year here, but trying to grind, trying to find form. I think that's an interesting point. I hope the wind. Friday's going to be a tough day, but I do hope. I don't hope it. I hope it's not what we saw last week, where it was just nothing. I mean, the flag wasn't even moving.
Oh, yeah.
And the bear trap. So you just don't get that at PGA National. So we'll keep an eye on it. I do think as you listen to this show, I know there's a lot of people that kind of listen to it and they go they kind of go do their thing. And then I do think waiting it out maybe a little bit here towards the end of tomorrow, seeing what the weather's going to do. It does seem like with the splits that on Friday, it's just going to blow all day. So I don't know if there'll be much of an advantage as far as the wave, because it does look like it's going to be pretty brutal all day.
Yeah, I think it'll be more of mentality wise. Do you lean to, like you said, to the guys you think get in there and dogfight it out versus, a guy that may not? And we're splitting hairs here, but definitely, Friday, Saturday looks like pretty good wins. They're going to get a little easy start on Thursday. Sunday looks fairly good. So that middle, can I grind out a cut, survive Saturday, and get to Sunday? I think it's going to challenge them for sure this week.
Yep. All right. Brandon Guptill, appreciate it, my man. Best of luck to everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And God, keep dodging those tornadoes. That just freaks me out when you talk like that.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it very much.